Woke companies are now just blatantly getting away with breaking the law. Totally normal. We're going to break it all down in this episode of the Brad vs. Everyone podcast, my daily show where I take on the craziest ideas from across the internet and across our politics from a center-right, independent perspective. If you're new here, please do consider subscribing and sticking around, and do hit that like button as we go along and comment with your thoughts. I do read the comments and I pick a few to respond to in every episode. Now, without further ado, we've got to talk about Apple because the major tech giant is embroiled in scandal right now because it's being called out for a new development program it has that specifically excludes white men. Apple's coming under scrutiny for its Apple Entrepreneurship Camp, an important career development opportunity for app designers that is specifically excluding white and Asian men from participating. Everyone else is welcome, because that's what diversity, equity, and inclusion looks like. Excluding some people because of their race and gender. What exactly is the Entrepreneur Camp? Well, here it is straight from the Apple website. Apple Entrepreneur Camp is designed for established app-driven businesses that are ready to join our exclusive technology lab and actively engage with our alumni community. In this product-focused lab, you'll collaborate one-on-one with Apple engineers and experts who will offer valuable critiques and recommendations to elevate your app. After the initial lab week, participants will also showcase their app to a broader team of Apple engineers and executives in a group demo presentation session. So this is a pretty significant opportunity if you're running a business with an app, or you're an app designer, or whatever the situation may be, to get your foot in the door at one of the biggest tech companies and get insight and advice from their top tier experts. But it's only available to people who qualify as underrepresented founders or female founders. There's a twist on that one that we'll get to. What exactly qualifies one for the first category, the underrepresented founders? Well, your organization must have a Black, Hispanic, Latinx, or Indigenous founder, co-founder, or CEO. The Latinx, such a red flag that woke brain rot people are running an organization and not actual Hispanics or Latinos who don't use Latinx and think it's ridiculous. So as far as I can tell, the only racial groups that wouldn't qualify would be whites and Asian people. Now, what about qualifying for the Female Founders Program? This is where things get interesting. At first glance, it sounds simple. Your organization must simply have a female founder, co-founder, or CEO. But they have an asterisk after female. And I noticed the asterisk, and I wanted to go and see what it led to. And I found in tiny letters at the bottom of the webpage, Apple believes that gender expression is a fundamental right. We welcome all women to apply. So you don't actually have to be female, biologically female. Female, the term refers to sex, not gender identity. You don't actually have to be female to participate in the Female Founders Development System. You just have to identify as a woman. So technically, not all white and Asian males are excluded from this. The ones who identify as women are still included. It would just be the cisgender ones who are barred from participating in this pretty awesome opportunity to advance your career and get valuable insights about behind the scenes for the biggest app store. My first question when I saw this was really simple. How is this not illegal to actually run career development programs and business initiatives that are no white men allowed? No Asian men allowed. I mean, I'm no lawyer, but if a major corporation launched this exact program, except the identity groups were switched and Black men and Hispanic men were not allowed, it was specifically excluding them, then I'm pretty sure that company would be investigated by the Department of Justice and punished for violating the Federal Civil Rights Act, which pretty clearly bars discrimination on the basis of race. But when it's done in reverse, no one cares, I guess. And if it is illegal, it doesn't get enforced. I understand that some of these fields like tech and like app development are overwhelmingly dominated by white and Asian men, and they want to have a more representative industry that includes people from all walks of life. But I don't think open discrimination is a positive or a constructive way to go about that. First and foremost, I think you should just be making sure that there are no barriers, right? There is no discrimination towards women applicants, towards Black applicants, other people, and focusing on getting out down whatever barriers were blocking them from entering the industry or being comfortable in these programs in the past. You can also do things like increase your recruitment efforts at historically Black colleges or other things to kind of expand the pool, cast a wider net. But once you've done all that, if you still end up with not exactly equal proportions, who cares? People and groups aren't exactly the same, and they won't make exactly the same choices all the time. That's okay. They could also do stuff that doesn't specifically involve race, but would improve racial diversity, like having programs for first-generation immigrants or for people who are the first generation of college graduates in their family or that come from low-income families or other things that would all actually speak to the circumstances that somebody's come up in, rather than these racial buckets which don't actually tell you anything about an individual. For all you know, the Black founder applying to this underrepresented founders program and taking the benefit from it is actually the son of a wealthy Nigerian immigrant and has had all the privileges and tutors since a very young age. Just because some groups statistically on average have different outcomes than others doesn't tell you about anything about the individual. So using race as a proxy for this kind of thing is always messy and imprecise. More importantly though, these kinds of things don't progress us towards a fair and open and race-blind society. They heighten divisions, they foster resentment between groups, and they reinforce these categories as meaningful distinctions between human beings when we should really be trying to have them fade into the background. They're not productive, they sure sound illegal, and they really should come to an end. That's just my take. You guys let me know what you think of Apple's interesting policies on racial admissions to its programs in the comments below. And now we're going to talk about Argentina, where their new president, Javier Milei, is making waves by rolling back some of the country's socialist policies and regulations to, so far, excellent results. Newsweek reports that Javier Milei got rid of rent control in Argentina, and housing supply has skyrocketed. Now, if you don't know, rent control is policies where the government caps how much landlords can charge in rents. It's a form of price controls. Economists almost universally think it's a bad idea, but it's often very politically popular because it sounds great when politicians tell people, I'll cap your rents, I'll help you out, and they don't actually think about the long-term economic consequences, which usually far outweigh any positive. Because when you constrain what landlords can charge in rent, you reduce the incentive for them to rent out their apartments at all, to expand their buildings, to offer more housing, and your overall supply is constrained, which ironically overall and over time leads to higher prices and a housing shortage. That's exactly what happened in Argentina, but now that Milei is changing the policy, things are rapidly reversing. Argentina's recent repeal of rent control by Libertarian President Javier Milei has led to a surge in housing supply, with the freedom to negotiate contracts, previously restricted, directly causing a drop in rental prices. Milei, a self-described anarcho-capitalist known for his free market approach, repealed the 2020 rental law enacted by former leftist President Alberto Fernandez, which had imposed restrictions on landlords and led to a significant decline in rental availability. No way. You're telling me the law did the exact same negative thing that economists have always said it would do? This is my shocked face. The law aimed to provide tenants with more financial security, but by the end of last year, an estimated 1 in 7 homes in Buenos Aires was sitting empty as landlords chose not to rent them out in Argentine pesos. Deposits were capped, and it was nearly impossible to end tenancies early. For many locals, finding a new apartment had become mission impossible, but after the repeal, Buenos Aires saw a doubling of available rental units, and rental prices have stabilized. Under the new rules, landlords and tenants have more freedom to agree on lease terms, and if the duration isn't specified, it defaults to 2 years. The numbers here are really astounding, guys. Since Milei's repeal of rent control laws took effect on December 29, the supply of rental housing in Buenos Aires has jumped by 195%. According to the Statistical Observatory of the Real Estate Market of the Real Estate College. That is a huge increase in the housing supply that will help alleviate the shortage and bring down prices. Now, none of this is actually surprising. It is all Econ 101 level stuff. But somehow these policies, these rent control policies, remain popular in much of the Western world, even though they've almost always failed horrifically and economists nearly universally reject them. And my question, after seeing this Argentina success story, is will American progressives ever learn? They continue to double down on these insane price controls, these rent control policies in progressive bubbles like New York City, where 44% of rental units are rent controlled, according to the New York Times. But they still have a mass affordability crisis. Shocker. Meanwhile, both Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have recently endorsed the idea of a national rent control policy, which I broke down previously why it's such a bad idea, but would have the same exact consequences of reducing landlords' incentive to supply housing and reducing their incentive to provide maintenance and amenities, and ultimately making the problem worse. Housing is way too expensive in many parts of this country, but price controls are not a solution. We need to actually build and offer more housing to the market, which has been made very difficult and very expensive in localities across the country through excessive regulation and zoning and, yes, rent control. I sincerely hope that people like Joe and Kamala and other progressives look and see yet another example of this policy failing, this time in Argentina, and realize that they're making a massive mistake by promoting the same failed ideas here in the States. But I won't be holding my breath waiting for them to make that realization, because the sad truth is they probably know it, but just don't care, because they think voters are too stupid to know better and will just like the promise of cheaper housing. That's just my take. You guys, let me know what you think in the comments below. And do you like Javier Milei? I find him certainly an interesting figure, shall we say. And now it's time for Brad versus TikTok, my daily segment where I take on the craziest ideas from the Clock app.
Pronoun of the day is slug.
If you're new here, please do subscribe and stick around, and regardless, hit that like button to reward my suffering. And now we've got to watch a truly wild TikTok from an anti-racist TikToker about how white people are always guilty of racism when they're accused of it, and denials just prove your guilt.
The first thing is when you're talking about racism and you say, well, that was racist, the person who is exhibiting the racist behavior and acting on their racist beliefs will typically respond with, well, that's not racist. Because even though they're the one being racist, they think that they get to decide what's racist and what's not. So you see this happening with a lot of white people, point blank. When black people bring up the topic of racism or say that something is racist, a lot of white people will respond with, well, that's not racist. So imagine an abuser saying to the person that they're abusing, I'm not abusing you. Meanwhile, the person that's being abused is telling them, wait, I know what abuse is because I've been dealing with it all this time. And actually, you don't get to decide what's abuse because you're the one that's doing the abusing. It makes no sense. So white folks out there watching this, you don't get to decide what's racist for black people. We are the target. We are on the receiving end of it. We are the ones being harmed by it. We will let you know if something is racist or not. You don't get to decide for us as the beneficiary of racism.
This was wild. I mean, did she really just compare a person who disagrees with you about whether something is racist to a literal abuser? Big yikes. I wanted to talk about this though, because there's something truly just a little bit insane about this denial proves your guilt mindset that is evidenced by this TikTok, but is actually pretty pervasive among progressive woke types. So if somebody accuses you of racism and you say, no, that wasn't racist, I disagree, I don't think I did something racist, you are, in fact, proving your own racism by denying it. But if you admit it in the first place, you are also admitting you are racist. So there's literally no option or no outcome for an accusation of racism to ever be refuted or declined. You sure that makes sense there, babe? Because we've seen a lot of accusations of racism over the years with kind of the woke culture and woke media gone mad that are pretty absurd and have no real basis in reality. So we do need a language or a process by which those accusations should always be taken seriously if somebody's accusing someone of racism, but aren't just totally accepted at face value at all times. And this victim gets to decide mentality is totally illogical and irrational. It assumes some kind of hive mind, like black people will decide or black people will know whether it's racist or not. But in any sort of gray area, you might have two different black people who disagree, who think, No, I don't find that statement racist. Or yes, I do find that statement racist. So you're actually flattening black people into one hive mind collective when that's not actually the case. Which, I know I'm not allowed to say this because I'm white, but sounds kind of racist to me. And I can show you guys how this logic doesn't work by using myself as an example. So me being gay, right? I get to be the ultimate arbiter of what is homophobic, according to this person. And if you're a straight person, you don't get to tell me. You have to defer to whatever I say is homophobia because I've experienced the homophobia and you're straight, cishet, privileged, whatever, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so say that I have a job and I'm paid $20 an hour and my boss is heterosexual and I demand a $50 an hour wage. He says, can't afford to pay you that, sorry. And I still say, no, I'm sorry, paying me less than $50 an hour is homophobic. And he goes, no, it's not homophobic. That doesn't make any sense. And I cut him off. I go, no. You don't get to tell me what homophobia is. I'm the one who's experienced homophobia. I get to tell you, you're straight. You can't know what homophobia is. You haven't experienced it. You must defer to me. So literally whatever I say goes. Now, of course, a logical, sane person who's also gay would look at the same situation and say, no, that's not homophobic. So still deferring to the group doesn't work because there is no actual group consensus. And also because no individual is right just because of their identity. I also reject the notion that you can't identify or perceive something correctly unless you are that thing. So while I have never experienced anti-black racism because I'm not black, I do understand what it is and what it looks like, and I think I can, with some degree of accuracy, perceive whether it's occurring or not. In the same way that I have never been a cat, but I can still identify a cat when I see a cat. Human beings, regardless of their demographic groups, are thinking beings with logic and rationality, or at least they're supposed to be. This TikToker appears to not be quite on the same page on that one. Or maybe she is, and frankly, it's just a grift. This same TikToker makes this kind of truly insane content guilting and shaming white people, and then directs them all to purchase her anti-racism education courses, because of course she does. You know, I'm of half a mind to sign up for one of these things under a fake name and like live stream it or something. Let me know if that's something you'd be interested or curious in me doing. And now I'll read a few of your comments from the last episode before we wrap up today's show. One person writes that they're in Australia, now in the US. In 2020, I saw the writing on the wall and spent 2 years getting my green card. Americans have no idea what it's like to not have constitutional rights that they have, what it's like to see your country turning into an authoritarian state with absolutely no means to stop it, when all you can do is leave. I love America. I have hope here. Well, welcome, and I'm happy to have you because I appreciate immigrants who love this country and don't take for granted the things like the First Amendment that so many of our native-born citizens do take for granted. Another person says, God bless America's founding fathers for freeing us from this monarchy wackadoodle country. You know, I do love the United Kingdom in some ways. And there are some things about it I think are beautiful. I love their football, their soccer culture and teams and all that. But yeah, their system of government, hard pass from me, babe. We fought a revolution for a reason. Y'all can keep it over there. Another person says, it is now my goal to work the phrase, you hurt my fifis, into my conversation at least once a day. Yeah, that is a funny phrase that I say. I just think society has become too accepting of people's feelings. Like, just because you feel something does not mean that thing is true or valid. And oftentimes, all feelings are valid. Nope, incorrect. Another person says, as an English lady of 62, I'd like to comment, but to be frank, I'm too scared to do so. It really is as bad as that. You know, I'm really sorry for you. That sucks, but I can't judge you for that because you're right to be concerned. Another person says, I think it's awesome that you know Sydney. I think she's amazing. Yes, Sydney Watson is my friend, and she's one of my favorite YouTubers. I like a lot of other YouTubers. A lot of them I don't like so much, but there are a few smart, sharp people on the right on YouTube who I really enjoy, and Sydney is one of them. So hopefully we'll have her back in the not too far distant future. Another person writes, I would love a video of you responding to more of that econ guy's videos or bring him on for a debate. How amazing, LOL. You know, maybe I will respond to more of his content. I did follow him, so maybe I'll see some more Delulu that I just can't resist dunking on. But I've stopped even reaching out to people for debates because I've done it so many times with these TikTokers and they never, ever agree to do it. So I've kind of given up, to be honest. Another person says, hey Brad, I know you said you're not much of a concert goer, but the ones you have attended, which was your favorite? I saw Joshua Bassett in concert and I really liked him. He probably wasn't the most musically talented that I've seen, but he was the best kind of performer. All right, everybody, that's it for this episode of the Brad versus Everyone podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Do remember to hit that like button before you go. Comment with your thoughts. I will be reading them later. And with that, we'll talk again tomorrow.